The observation pod hummed with a frequency that made Krell's third stomach churn. He pressed two of his sensory appendages against the transparent aluminum, watching the human settlement below with something between fascination and absolute terror. "This is insane," he muttered, his translator chip working overtime to convert his clicks and whistles into something resembling standard galactic. "This is genuinely, completely, utterly insane." His partner, Vesa, didn't even look up from her monitoring equipment. She'd been stationed on Earth for 6 cycles now, long enough to develop what Krell considered a deeply unhealthy comfort level with the planet's dominant species. "You said that already," she replied, her mandibles clicking in what might have been amusement. 14 times in the last hour. Actually, I've been counting. Because it bears repeating. Krell's eye stalks swiveled frantically between the settlement and his scanner readings. "Look at this. Just look at this situation and tell me it makes any logical sense whatsoever." The scene below was simple enough. A human dwelling, what they called a cabin, sat in a clearing surrounded by dense forest. Standard construction, nothing remarkable, except for the small human inside. The juvenile, the tiny, helpless, utterly vulnerable infant that the adult humans had apparently decided to leave alone for the night, and the creature they'd left it with. "That is not a pet," Krell said, zooming in his scanner. "That is a predator. A legitimate, actual, honest-to-the-void predator, and they've left it alone with their offspring. It's called a badger," Vesa said helpfully. "Melissa thought he was cute, so she brought him home 3 seasons ago. Named him Brutus." "Cute. Cute?" Krell's voice climbed several octaves. "That thing has claws that could disembowel a Korthan battle drone. Its jaw strength registers at— wait, let me check this because I must be reading it wrong. No, I'm not. Its jaw strength is sufficient to crack bone. Actual bone." And the human female saw this creature and thought, "Yes, perfect companion for my genetic offspring." "The child's name is Tommy," Vesa offered. "He's 4 Earth years old. Loves drawing pictures of spaceships, hates vegetables, particularly the green ones they call broccoli. I don't care if he loves interpretive dance and hates anti-gravity poetry." Krell spun around, all 4 arms gesturing wildly. "The child, Tommy, whatever, is currently sleeping in that dwelling with a creature that, according to our database, is classified as one of the most aggressive mammals on the planet. Do you understand what that means on a world like Earth? One of the most aggressive. On Earth." Vesa finally looked up, her large eyes blinking slowly. "Are you finished?" No, I am not finished." Krell turned back to the window. "We should intervene. This falls under Protocol 7, subsection 12. Protecting developing sentience from immediate danger. He's not in danger. There is a badger, a creature whose species motto is apparently, attack first, never ask questions, currently sleeping at the foot of his bed." "Exactly," Vesa said. "Sleeping, peacefully, like he does every night." Krell started to respond, then stopped, then started again, then stopped once more. Finally, he managed, "Every night? Every single night for the past 2 Earth years." Vesa returned her attention to her screens. The parents work night shifts at the local medical facility. 3 times a week, they leave Tommy home with Brutus. Nothing has ever happened. Nothing has, but, statistically something must. Krell trailed off, his sensory appendages drooping. "You're new to Earth monitoring," Vesa said, not unkindly. "You haven't internalized the primary rule yet, which is, humans don't make sense. Stop trying to make them make sense. Just observe, document, and try not to let your brain leak out of your auditory canals from sheer confusion." Krell was about to argue when his scanner beeped. Movement. Multiple signatures, approaching the cabin from the western tree line. "Oh no," he whispered. "Oh no, what?" Vesa's tone sharpened. "Movement. 4. No. 5 biosignatures. Large, predatory, approaching the dwelling." Now Vesa was beside him, her own scanner active. "Identification? Cross-referencing now. Database says regional fauna, classification canine, subspecies, ovoid and stars, they're wolves." "Not good," Vesa said quietly. "Not good? Not good?" Krell's voice pitched up again. "There's a helpless human child in there with a oversized mustelid, and now there are 5 apex predators approaching. We have to do something. We have to intervene. Protocol 7 clearly states. Protocol 7 also states we only intervene when the subject lacks adequate protection. Vesa interrupted. Let's just watch. For a moment. Just watch. Watch a child get. I can't even. I'm filing 17 different reports about this. But Krell watched. The wolves moved with coordinated precision. Pack hunters. Intelligent. Dangerous. They'd clearly marked the cabin as a target. Probably smelled the food inside. Maybe even sensed the child. Easy prey. Simple raid. They emerged from the tree line, 5 dark shapes in the moonlight. The alpha, a massive gray male, led the approach. Confident. Why wouldn't he be? A wooden structure, a small human, no adult defenders visible. The pack spread out, surrounding the cabin's entrance. Inside, visible through the window, the child slept. Peaceful. Dreaming whatever human children dreamed about. Probably spaceships, Krell thought absurdly. And at the foot of the bed, Brutus slept too. Curled up, looking almost harmless in the dim light. The alpha wolf reached the door, tested it with his snout. Weak. These human dwellings, so easy to breach. He looked back at his pack, gathering for the push. That's when Brutus's eyes opened. Oh, Vesa said softly. Here we go. Krell didn't understand. The badger was small, maybe 12 kilograms at most. The wolves were easily 3 times that size. The math couldn't possibly. Brutus stood up. It wasn't a normal movement. It was like watching a hydraulic system activate, smooth and purposeful and containing an energy that suddenly made Krell's scanner readings make terrible, perfect sense. The badger looked at the sleeping child, then at the door, then back at the child, and something in his posture changed. Oh no, Krell whispered again, but for entirely different reasons. The alpha wolf hit the door. The wood cracked. One more hit and they'd be through. Brutus moved. The badger crossed the room in 3 bounds, hit the door from the inside with enough force to make the entire frame shudder, and then, somehow, incredibly, impossibly, went through it. Not around it. Not over it. Through it. Wood exploded outward. The door didn't open so much as disintegrate. And in the shower of splinters and moonlight came a creature that Krell suddenly realized they'd categorized entirely wrong. Brutus hit the alpha wolf like a missile. Sweet merciful void, Krell breathed. The alpha outweighed Brutus by 40 kilograms. It didn't matter. The badger latched onto the wolf's throat with jaws that had cracked bones before, and would crack bones again, and the larger predator went down like someone had cut his power supply. The other 4 wolves hesitated. Fatal mistake. Brutus released the alpha, who wasn't dead but clearly wished he was, and turned on the others. What happened next defied every piece of predator-prey analysis Krell had ever studied. The wolves were pack hunters, coordinated, experienced. Brutus didn't care. He went through them like they were holographic projections. A snap of jaws here, removing an ear and most of the will to fight from wolf number 2. A raking of claws there, teaching wolf number 3 that retreat was not cowardice but wisdom. Wolf number 4 tried to get smart, tried to circle around. Brutus somehow sensed this, spun, and delivered a blow with his front claws that sent the wolf tumbling back into the tree line. Wolf number 5, showing the intelligence that had kept his species alive this long, ran. The others followed, the alpha limping, blood trailing, dignity abandoned somewhere in the shattered remains of the cabin door. Brutus stood in the clearing, breathing hard, covered in blood that wasn't his, and surveyed his territory. Then, satisfied, he turned around and walked back into the cabin. Through the window, Krell and Vesa watched as the badger returned to the bedroom, carefully navigated around the sleeping child who hadn't woken up through any of this, and curled back up at the foot of the bed. Within 30 seconds he appeared to be asleep again. Krell said, I can't. What? Badgers, Vesa said calmly, are what humans call a animal that doesn't start fights but absolutely finishes them. They have a reputation on Earth. There's even a phrase about them. Something about not poking them unless you want to lose your entire arm and possibly your will to live. But he's a pet. He's a companion animal that the humans raised from infancy after his mother was killed by something the humans call a combine harvester, Vesa corrected. The child Tommy bottle-fed him, slept next to him. The badger imprinted on the human family, considers the child part of his colony. Colony? Badgers are fiercely territorial and protective of their colonies, Vesa explained, pulling up a file on her screen. They'll fight anything that threatens their territory or their young. Anything. There are documented cases of badgers driving off creatures 50 times their size. One report mentions a badger holding off an entire pack of wild dogs for 6 hours straight. It didn't retreat. It didn't tire. It just kept fighting until the dogs gave up. That's not normal behavior. It's perfectly normal for badgers. And this one, she gestured to the screen showing the peacefully sleeping Brutus, considers Tommy to be his responsibility. Nothing gets past him. Nothing. Krell slumped into his observation chair, all four arms hanging limply. This planet. This insane, backwards, incomprehensible planet. The parents will be home in 3 hours, Vesa said. They'll fix the door. Probably laugh about the wolves. Give Brutus some kind of treat that he'll pretend he doesn't enjoy, and everything will go back to normal. Normal, Krell repeated hollowly. You keep using that word. I don't think it means what you think it means. Welcome to Earth monitoring, Vesa said cheerfully. Population, 8 billion humans and counting. Dominant species somehow. Common sense, apparently optional. Logic, frequently absent. Survival instinct, highly questionable. Success rate, inexplicably perfect. Krell pulled up his reporting interface with a trembling appendage. I'm documenting this, all of this, every single detail. The council needs to know what we're dealing with here. Good luck with that. I've filed 417 similar reports. You know what response I got? What? Acknowledged. Continue monitoring. Avoid direct contact. Try not to think about it too hard. Below them, in the cabin, the child stirred slightly in his sleep, reaching out unconsciously. His hand landed on Brutus's fur. The badger, without waking, shifted closer. Guardian and guarded. Predator and protected. A relationship that made no sense by any metric the Galactic Council had ever established, yet somehow worked perfectly. I need a drink, Krell announced. We don't metabolize alcohol the same way humans do. I don't care. I need something. Anything. Do we have any of those calming crystals from Mathara 7? Used the last one watching a human teenager try something called parkour off a 6-story building. Did they die? Broke both legs. Laughed about it. Was attempting it again 3 months later. Krell made a sound that his translator couldn't quite process into words. It came out as a series of despairing clicks and whistles that somehow perfectly captured his current mental state. You'll get used to it, Vesa assured him. I don't want to get used to it. I want it to make sense. Then you're on the wrong planet. Vesa returned to her monitoring station. The humans have a saying. Something about the fact that they're not afraid of monsters in the dark because they've made friends with most of them, or made them into pets, or integrated them into their security systems. Sometimes all three. That's not a survival strategy. That's insanity. And yet, here they are. Thriving. Expanding. Taking creatures that should by all rights eat them, and turning them into, what did Melissa call Brutus? Oh yes. Her fuzzy little murder machine. Said with complete affection, by the way. Krell looked at his screens, at the countless data points that refused to form a coherent picture, at the sleeping child, protected by a creature that should terrify him but instead loved him enough to fight 5 wolves without hesitation. I'm putting in for a transfer, he decided. To where? Anywhere. A nice, quiet monitoring post watching the methane breathers on Titan. Those beings make sense. They float, they absorb nutrients, they occasionally reproduce. Simple. Logical. Sane. Your transfer will be denied. How do you know? Because once you've been assigned to Earth monitoring, they don't let you leave. Something about the psychological profile required to handle this posting being too rare to waste. Also, because after about 6 months, you stop wanting to leave. That's ridiculous. Why would anyone want to stay? Vesa smiled, an expression that looked strange on her alien features. Because despite everything, despite all the chaos and illogic and constant violation of what should be possible, you start to realize something. What? The humans are going to be fine. No matter what happens. No matter what threatens them. They're going to look at it, probably adopt it or befriend it or train it, and they're going to be absolutely fine. and there's something oddly comforting about that. Down in the cabin, Brutus's ear twitched. Some small sound, inaudible to most, had registered in his enhanced hearing. His eyes opened briefly, scanned the room, confirmed the child's safety, and closed again. The child slept on, safe and warm, guarded by a creature that would, without question or hesitation, fight anything and everything that threatened him. It made no sense. It was perfectly normal. It was Earth. The next morning arrived with the kind of cheerful brightness that Krell had learned to associate with Earth disasters waiting to happen. Sunlight streamed through the observation pod windows. Birds sang in patterns his audio receptors classified as chaotic noise, and somewhere below, the human parents had returned home. They're laughing, Krell observed, zooming in on the cabin. The door is destroyed, there's blood on the ground, and they're laughing. Marcus and Melissa stood in the doorway, surveying the damage with what Krell could only describe as proud amusement. The human male, Marcus, knelt down and scratched Brutus behind the ears while the badger made a rumbling sound that the database classified as contentment. "Good boy," Marcus said, his voice carrying clearly through Krell's audio pickups. "Kept our Tommy safe, didn't you?" "Yes, you did." "Who's a terrifying ball of fury and protection?" "You are." "I'm getting the extra strength kibble from the shed," Melissa called out. "He's earned it." Tommy appeared in the ruined doorway, rubbing sleep from his eyes, completely oblivious to the violence that had occurred mere meters from where he'd been dreaming. "Why is the door broken?" "Brutus had some visitors last night," Marcus explained. "The rude kind that don't knock." "Did he tell them to go away?" "Very firmly. With teeth." "Good, Brutus." Tommy dropped down and hugged the badger, who tolerated this with the patience of a creature that could shred steel but chose not to. "You're the best protector ever." Krell felt something in his primary neural cortex attempting to short-circuit. The child doesn't understand the danger. He doesn't comprehend that he was moments away from being wolf food. "He understands perfectly," Vesa corrected. "He understands that Brutus keeps him safe. That's all he needs to know at 4 years old. The complexity can come later. This is terrible parenting." "Is it?" The child feels secure, loved, and protected. He's learning trust and responsibility. The parents have successfully integrated a highly effective security system that doubles as emotional support. By most psychological metrics, this is excellent parenting. Before Krell could formulate another protest, his scanner chirped. New arrivals. 3 vehicles approaching on the access road, moving fast. "Please tell me that's just neighbors coming to visit," he said weakly. Vesa checked her own screen, and her mandibles tightened. "No. That's worse. Much worse." "How can it possibly be worse than wolves?" "Because those are humans. Specifically, government humans. Wildlife Control Division." Krell watched as 3 trucks pulled up to the cabin, disgorging 6 humans in official-looking uniforms. They carried equipment, scanning devices, and most worryingly, what the database identified as tranquilizer weapons. "Oh no. Oh yes." The lead official, a woman with graying hair and an expression that suggested she'd dealt with nonsense before and would deal with it again, approached Marcus and Melissa. Her name tag read Director Patricia Vance. "Received reports of a dangerous animal incident," Director Vance said without preamble. 5 wolves found injured at the forest perimeter, signs of aggressive animal activity, and according to my sensors, 1 extremely agitated mustelid on your property." "Brutus isn't agitated," Melissa said calmly. "He's protective." "There's a difference. Ma'am, with respect, badgers are wild animals. They're not suitable as household companions, especially not around children. We're going to need to relocate him to a proper facility." Tommy, who had been listening from the doorway, made a sound that Krell's translator struggled to classify. It was high-pitched, emotional, and somehow conveyed more distress than any words could. "You can't take Brutus. He's my friend. He keeps the scary things away." Director Vance's expression softened slightly, but her resolve didn't waver. "I understand he's special to you, son, but safety regulations exist for good reasons. A badger that attacks wolves is dangerous. He attacked wolves that were trying to break into our home," Marcus interjected, his tone hardening. "That's not dangerous behavior. That's protective behavior. There's a substantial legal difference." "Mr. Cooper, I've been doing this job for 23 years. I've seen dozens of cases where people thought they could domesticate wild animals. It always ends badly. Brutus has been with us for 2 years, Melissa said. Not one incident. Not one aggressive moment toward Tommy or anyone in our family. He's gentle, trained, and bonded. You take him away, you're not protecting anyone. You're traumatizing a child and punishing an animal for doing exactly what any guardian should do. Director Vance sighed, looking genuinely conflicted. I don't make these rules, I just enforce them. The law is clear about exotic animal ownership. Up in the observation pod, Krell was frantically reviewing Earth legal databases. This is complicated. The regulations vary by region, but generally, wild animal ownership requires special permits and facility standards. Looking at the cabin, I don't think they meet the technical requirements. Then they'll lose Brutus, Vesa said quietly. And that will break the child's heart, and probably enrage the parents, and definitely upset the badger, who will not go peacefully. Can't the humans just, I don't know, negotiate? Compromise? Find a logical solution? This is Earth. Logic is a suggestion, not a requirement. Below, the situation escalated. 2 of the wildlife control officers moved toward Brutus with catch poles and tranquilizer guns. The badger, sensing threat, positioned himself between them and Tommy, his posture shifting from relaxed to ready in an instant. Sir, please control your animal, one officer said nervously. He's controlling himself just fine, Marcus replied. You're the ones creating a threatening situation. We have authorization to sedate and transport. Please step back. That's when things got interesting. Brutus didn't attack, didn't growl or show aggression. He simply sat down in front of Tommy and refused to move. Every time an officer approached, the badger shifted position, always maintaining his protective stance, never advancing, never retreating. It was a standoff, and somehow, the 12-kilogram badger was winning. This is ridiculous, one officer muttered. It's just a badger. We've relocated hundreds of animals. Feel free to try, Marcus said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. But I should warn you, Brutus has excellent lawyers. Badgers don't have lawyers. No, but we do. Melissa held up her communication device. Already contacted them. Should be here in about 15 minutes. Meanwhile, you're on private property without a proper warrant, attempting to seize an animal that's committed no crime, causing distress to a minor child, and violating approximately 7 different statutes regarding due process. Director Vance's eye twitched. You're going to fight this legally? Aggressively, publicly, with media coverage. Small-town family has protective pets seized by overreaching government agency while child watches in tears. How do you think that plays on the evening news? That's manipulation. That's parenting. Melissa's voice went cold. You want to take Brutus? You go through every legal channel properly. With documentation, hearings, evidence, expert testimony. We'll prove he's no danger to anyone except threats to this family. And we'll make sure everyone knows exactly what's happening and why. Krell watched in fascination as Director Vance's certainty crumbled. She looked at her officers, at the determined parents, at the crying child, and at the badger who had somehow become the moral center of this entire confrontation. This is going to be a paperwork nightmare, she said finally. Absolutely. Marcus agreed cheerfully. Months of it. Maybe years. Appeals, reviews, assessments. You could spend all that time and resources, or you could inspect our facilities, verify that Brutus is properly cared for, confirm that he poses no public danger, and issue us whatever permits or licenses we need to keep him legally. We'll pay the fees, follow the regulations, submit to regular inspections, whatever it takes. Director Vance was quiet for a long moment. Then she turned to one of her officers. What does the preliminary behavioral assessment say? The officer checked his scanner. Animal shows high intelligence, strong territorial instincts, but no unprovoked aggression. Stress levels are elevated due to current situation, but baseline readings suggest stable temperament. Bonding indicators with the human family are, actually off the charts. Off the charts how? Like, I've never seen readings this high. The animal's emotional attachment to the child specifically registers as parental-level protective instinct. It's extraordinary. Director Vance rubbed her temples. I hate this job sometimes. She looked at Marcus and Melissa. Fine. Conditional approval. I'm issuing a temporary exotic animal permit valid for 6 months. During that time, you'll need to prove proper housing, regular veterinary care, behavioral assessments, and safety protocols. Fail any of those requirements, and Brutus gets relocated. No appeals, no media circus. Agreed? Agreed, both parents said immediately. And if there's one more incident, one more report of aggressive behavior, there won't be, Melissa interrupted. Because Brutus isn't aggressive. He's protective. Those are different things. I'm aware of the distinction. I'm just not sure everyone else will be. Director Vance knelt down to Tommy's level. Young man, do you understand that Brutus is a very special animal that needs special care? Tommy nodded, tears still streaming down his face. He's my best friend. Then you help your parents take good care of him, okay? Make sure he's happy and healthy. I will. I promise. Director Vance stood, signed something on her digital pad, and handed it to Marcus. 6 months. Don't make me regret this. As the wildlife control vehicles departed, Krell slumped in his observation chair. That was the most inefficient resolution to a legal conflict I've ever witnessed. But it worked, Vessa pointed out. Everyone got what they needed. The child keeps his guardian. The parents maintain their family structure. The authorities preserve public safety protocols. And Brutus continues doing what he does best, which is protecting his colony, no matter what. Down at the cabin, life returned to normal with remarkable speed. Marcus started measuring the doorframe for repairs while Melissa prepared the promised extra-strength kibble. Tommy sat with Brutus in the grass, talking to the badger about spaceships and adventures and all the things 4-year-olds consider important. There's something I don't understand, Krell said after a while. The wolves, the government officials, all these threats. Why do the humans stay here? Why not move somewhere safer? Somewhere without predators and regulations and constant danger. Vessa was quiet for a moment, watching the scene below. Because this is their home. And humans don't abandon their homes easily. They adapt, they fight, they find solutions. It's not about safety, not really. It's about belonging, about having a place that's theirs, where they can raise their children and live their lives according to their own rules. Even if it's dangerous? Especially if it's dangerous. Humans seem to thrive on challenges. The harder something is, the more determined they become to make it work. Over the next several hours, Krell watched as the family repaired the door, fed their animals, played with their child, and lived their lives with a contentment that seemed disproportionate to their circumstances. Marcus sang while working. Melissa laughed at something Tommy said, and Brutus supervised everything with the satisfaction of a job well done. It was aggressively, defiantly normal. I'm starting to understand what you meant, Krell admitted. About staying. About wanting to observe them longer. Oh? They're infuriating. They make no sense. Their logic is backwards, their survival instincts are questionable, and their decision-making process appears to be based primarily on emotion and stubbornness. But they make it work. Somehow, against all probability, they make it work. And there's something compelling about that. Something that suggests we might be missing a crucial variable in our calculations. Which is? I have no idea. That's why I want to keep watching. Vessa's mandibles clicked in satisfaction. Welcome to Earth monitoring, Krell. You're going to fit in just fine. As evening approached, Tommy insisted on sleeping outside under the stars, a request his parents granted with the kind of casual trust that would have given the Galactic Safety Council collective heart failure. They set up a small tent in the yard, provided blankets and snacks, and reminded Tommy that Brutus would be right there if he needed anything. The child settled in happily, Brutus curling up at the tent entrance like a fuzzy, deadly guardian statue. This is completely unsafe, Krell observed without much heat. Anything could approach in the night. More wolves, bears, other predators. And they'll meet Brutus, Vessa replied, who will politely but firmly suggest they reconsider their life choices. You're saying the badger is sufficient protection? I'm saying that after last night, every predator in a 5-kilometer radius knows exactly what lives in this territory. Word spreads in the animal kingdom. Brutus has established his reputation. Nothing smart will come near this place. She was right. Krell's scanners showed numerous animals moving through the surrounding forest, but none approached the cabin. They all gave it a wide berth, instinctively recognizing marked territory and a defender not to be challenged. In the tent, Tommy talked to Brutus about his day, about the scary people who came but left again, about how brave his friend was. The badger listened with patience, occasionally making small sounds that seemed to comfort the child. "Does Brutus understand him?" Krell asked. "The words, I mean?" "Probably not the specific words, but the intent, the emotion, the bond? Absolutely. Sometimes understanding goes deeper than language." As night fell completely, Tommy finally drifted off to sleep, one small hand resting on Brutus's fur. The badger remained alert, eyes scanning the darkness, ears monitoring every sound, a guardian who would never sleep deeply, never relax completely, never fail in his self-appointed duty. The child slept, the badger watched. And in the observation pod high above, 2 alien researchers documented it all, adding another page to the ever-growing file labeled, "Earth, Humans, Inexplicable but Functional." "You know what the strangest part is?" Krell said eventually. "What?" "I'm starting to think they might actually conquer the galaxy someday. Not through superior technology or military might, but through sheer stubborn refusal to accept that things should be impossible." "That," Vesa said, "is the most intelligent observation you've made since arriving. Thank you. You're still filing 17 reports, though. Obviously, the Council needs to know what's coming." "They already know. They just don't believe it. Would you? If you hadn't seen it yourself?" Vesa considered this. "No, probably not. Some things you have to witness to understand. And even then, understanding might be too strong a word." Below, Brutus's ear twitched. Some small creature, a rabbit perhaps, had moved too close to the tent. The badger's eyes opened, tracked the movement, determined it wasn't a threat, and closed again. But the message was clear. Boundaries established, territory marked, guardian on duty. Nothing would harm the child. Not tonight, not ever. Not while Brutus drew breath. It was a promise written in instinct and loyalty, in fierce devotion and unconditional love. A promise that transcended species, logic, and reason. A promise that made perfect sense in the way that human relationships so often did, defying analysis while remaining absolutely true. The child slept peacefully, dreaming of spaceships and adventures, protected by a friend who asked nothing in return except the privilege of keeping him safe. And somewhere in the vast galaxy, and in observation posts and research stations and administrative centers, other beings watched and documented and tried desperately to understand the species that turned predators into family, danger into opportunity, and impossibility into just another Tuesday afternoon. The reports would pile up, the data would accumulate, the analysis would continue, but the conclusion remained elusive, dancing just beyond comprehension. Summarized best perhaps in the note Vesa added to her daily log. Day 2847 of Earth monitoring. Subject: human child, protective badger, continuing survival against improbable odds. Conclusion: still don't understand how this works. Still, it works anyway. Recommend continued observation and significantly increased budget for calming crystals. Morning would bring new challenges, new incomprehensible human decisions, new violations of established behavioral theory. For now, though, the child slept. The badger kept watch. And 2 alien observers learned, slowly but surely, that sometimes the best protection came not from the biggest or strongest, but from the most determined. Earth continued spinning. Life continued happening. And Brutus continued being the best fuzzy murder machine a 4-year-old could ever ask for. The galaxy would adjust. Eventually. Probably. Maybe. Actually, the galaxy would likely just give up trying to make sense of it, and accept that humans were going to human, regardless of what anyone else thought was reasonable. And really, when you thought about it, that was the most human thing of all.